Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 485, and today we're doing battle with Teemo Caitlyn. And so Teemo Caitlyn, a deck, it's been around for ages. Teemo, a popular standby since the release of the game, and then Caitlyn coming in a little bit later to add the flashbang piece to the Traps package. And so we do have what I consider some new innovations to this deck. I wasn't the one that initially brought these forth. Some other brilliant mind out there did it. But today we're going to be featuring the Omen Hawk and the Glacial Saurion, two cards that I still contend are major mistakes within the game. And so the Omen Hawk sitting up here in the 1-drop space, recently buffed to allow it to also block elusive units. It was strong enough on its own, but now it has this additional perk to it. And then his friend Glacial Saurion, another unit that should be strong enough on its own, a 5/4 Overwhelm that Omen Hawks the top units of your deck, but what's supposed to make the Saurion challenging, what makes it hard to use, is this: if an ally has a different subtype than me, draw one of those units. And it turns out subtypes are not particularly challenging to hit. We do have the Omen Hawk, which makes sense as a subtyped unit, but we also have 8 Yordles in the deck across things like Chumpwump, Teemo, and Veteran Investigator. We have a handful of ways to help activate that card draw. And so that's kind of like piece number one that's been added to the equation here. We have this unit buffing package that allows our units to become inordinately strong in the early portions of the game, but this deck also sequences just a little bit differently than the Teemo decks of past. And so, in my mind, there's been really 2 separate flavors of the Teemo decks. Number one has been a very kind of aggressively oriented deck. This is something that we saw a lot of in the space of Expedition, is to where you're going to come down early, try and hit your opponent for maybe like 8 points of combat damage. Then maybe you'll get to deal about 4 points of burn damage, and then you'll finish off with the puff caps for the remainder of the way. And so the way that you would find the game sequencing, or you get those early curve units down, you start blasting your opponents with attacks, your opponent starts to outclass your units, and then at that point you're just purely on the burn plan. And then the next kind of iteration, the next angle of Teemo Caitlyn has been through the usage of Karina. This is something to where you're placing a much heavier emphasis on dropping the puff caps on your opponent, and this allows you to potentially hit them for 10, 15 damage in one go with this big Karina effect. And so this deck that we're playing here today falls somewhere a little bit more in the middle with that kind of theme. We do have some fairly aggressive options in terms of our units, with Teemo and Chumpwump and Caitlyn and Glacial Saurion all being able to do reasonable attacks. But for the most part, the way that this game is going to sequence in terms of differences with those other ones is Teemo can come in and crash for a few points of damage, but then Glacial Saurion is going to provide the big overwhelm damage that's going to give us those hits in place of the aggressively oriented attacks of days past. And so if we can get in 8 points of damage with the Glacial Saurion, that gets us in a pretty similar space, right? Where we've done 8 points of combat damage. Now maybe we can deal 4 points of burn damage with Mystic Shot, and then finish off the games with puff caps, whether it's naturally from Teemo or with Karina. Now, the last thing I'll say about this deck before we really dive into battle is this deck is extremely polarized in terms of its win rates and its matchups that are good. And so the slower the deck is that your opponent presents, the stronger that this deck is going to be against it. And as you can imagine, you may not really be able to get the puff caps up and running and planted into the opponent's deck until turn 6 or turn 7. If the game's over by that point, then the puff caps weren't particularly effective, right? They don't actually do anything to affect the game until they directly kill your opponent. And so if you're playing against decks that draw a bunch of cards like Janna, if you're playing against slower decks like Karma Set or Seraphine or whatnot, this deck tends to be quite effective in the sense that they give us time to set up. They don't apply any pressure. They want to draw a bunch of cards along the way, and this puff cap strategy works quite well there. Where it starts to fall apart is if we run into the more aggressively oriented decks of the format. If you think of things like Pirates, those would always cause problems since we don't have very good combats. And then even a lot of the other Freylord-based combat mid-rangey decks of this format, while not unbeatable, do cause us a bit of problems since their units just outclass all of ours, and they tend to be able to get in some fairly hefty overwhelm attacks in the mid game that we don't have great answers to. And so we'll see how the games go today, see if we can't get in for a good time, have a little bit of fun, jump on into battle. So let me see if we can't get this sound in order. I've messed up the sound everywhere. It makes me feel bad. I think it's running. Hang on. Is that better? Is that worse? Doesn't it doesn't? I don't see the game sound thing moving on terms of the OBS. I'll try and get it figured out. There. How about that? At least the mic's working. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. I'll try and figure it out after this game. I feel bad. Like we're participating in the champion draft series. The draft video for that came out yesterday. The matches will start here in about a week. But I did the normal kind of recording broadcast at the beginning part. That went all fine, but then as I was talking about the draft, I loaded up the wrong microphone, and so my voice is really faint. It's very echoey, and I feel kind of bad. If it was one of my own videos for my own stuff, I don't really care. But trying to present something at least moderately professional for someone else, and to have it come together like that was a bit of a bummer. But hopefully, if you all watched that, you at least enjoyed it a little bit, even though the quality wasn't up to snuff, if you will. Oh man, I think the game sound fixed itself. Nice. There it is. We're definitely ready for battle now. Let's jump on in. So we are up against Nasus Senna. This should be a deck in that kind of space of a little bit slower, wanting to draw a bunch of cards. This should be the Castigate control style of deck. So we'll have to see how this one goes. I'm a little bit leery of even adding Omen Hawk to the board. Since it does give an opponent, a targetable unit that they can potentially get a slay on, but I don't think we can plan on just going purely puff caps here and not really presenting any kind of threat to the opponent.
Hot on the trail.
So I am on board with this start, though. We pick up Caitlyn. She's a champion that cannot be castigated. Castigate only hits followers, so she should be good here. And then we can start to lead in with the Teemo next turn. I don't quite want to add Chumpwump. I worry about that Castigate hitting this turn. But I guess on the flip side, like I was thinking of just going Teemo into Puffcat Peddler, but that's still a pretty good Castigate for the opponent. But in the event that they don't have it, I think we'll be a little bit happier with the Chumpwump here. And Eradicate. Well, definitely feel like we feel better in the sense of Eradicate. And I know our Caitlyn in hand is a 4/4, and so she can potentially dodge some of those shenanigans should opponent want to play another one of those or play a Calling Strike or something. And so see how that sequences out. But a nice hit of damage. Again, we want to hit for about 8, 10. Those are good numbers in terms of just standard unit-based combat. And then we'll try and finish this stuff off with some puff caps. How big is this guy? A 5'5"? It's a pretty meaty stat line. I knew I saw our bonuses rolling through, and I was like, oh, maybe we got enough stats in hand to fight our way through this, and we don't, Yeah, we don't. So we'll just take this damage. The opponent shouldn't be able to really come at us and hit us in terms of actual real damages here. And so that should be fine. I'm going to go ahead and add in Teemo. He is at risk, but he's going to be at risk at all stages of the rest of this game. And so I feel like I want to go ahead and just get the Teemo on the board, and then we could potentially just hit the opponent with a flip. Interesting, though, with the second Teemo coming in. So let's make a quick pivot. So if he wants to eradicate or something, our Teemo can have the chance to pop off. The danger here is if he has Ruination. You can't play around literally everything all the time, and so I think we have to kind of pick an angle here and just go for it a little bit. We're pretty safe against single targety kind of stuff like this, but the AoEs like Eradicate we're kind of fine against Castigate we're kind of fine, and so I think this angle all turned out okay. Still have a lot of potential to flip the Teemo here. He's got that Vengeance loaded up, right? He says, do I have to spend a 6-mana Vengeance to take down a 1-mana Teemo? It's not the world I want to be living in. Ooh, Nasus. Well, we don't have great answers to him other than just blocking, and so I guess Teemo it is. So let's load up all of these puff caps. send in our little Yordle friend. See if we can't stall this out for a couple of turns. Uh-oh, he's stopping on this 1 mana. It's like, oh, it's so brutal if he has like an exhaust. I don't think this deck plays stuff like exhaust, but if he gets to cancel our double puff cap hit here, that's just a pure disaster. Okay, so we should be able to survive this. Like, Nasus flipping isn't that big of a deal. I'm a little bit more worried about the Camaveran Dragon getting these drains as opposed to anything Nasus is out here doing, but we have a touch of time to survive this turn. I think if we get out of this turn, we have a decent shot of winning this game. So I'll add in the Puffcat Peddler. He can't play any of the big AoE removal type spells at this point. Now the question is, do we want to add Caitlyn? Kind of one of the defensive measures we have here is the high roll insider knowledge, but I don't think we actually need it.
Not by a long shot.
The only thing I particularly care about here is just don't die. You know, let's get out here and get some blocks in. I want to block with the Chump Wumps and with the Caitlyn. And then B, we need this Puff Cap package to still kind of pop off. And so I don't really want to be losing Puff Cap Peddlers and Teemos and stuff, but everyone else is kind of fair game if you ask me. How does this look if we take a Caitlyn block that has us taking 3? We can still respond with this Brittle Steel if we need to. So I think we can stop here. This deck doesn't have any ways to just deal damage, right? I mean, Atrocity's not in Standard. I think this is safe to stop here. Famous last words as usual, but I feel like it's a safe space to be in. Right. See what these combats can look like now. An opponent's going to have to draw 4 cards. They're at about 3 damage a draw. Right? They got 60 puff caps. 60 and 30 cards. They're about 2 damage a draw, but we have a lot of ways to force it with the insider knowledge. All right, a 4 damage hit rolls in. I think we're pretty safe to attack with Caitlyn here. He's going to want to block with like the Camaveran Dragon if he has a shenanigan, or he's going to want to block with Nasus, which we just don't care about. And so I think we can hit with both. If she gets to deal that 4 damage, then beautiful. We could potentially insider knowledge beforehand as well, but curious how this goes. Vengeance onto Teemo. So let's drop the insider knowledge, see if we hit any additional traps along the way here.
I've always been a fun guy.
Rite of Negation wouldn't be too crazy to see. I mean, what else is he gonna Rite of Negation this game? Yeah. Alright, so we get 4 damage in. Good as it's gonna get there. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and cast Harsh Winds. Again, if we get into combat this next turn, can we actually survive? No, we can't block Nasus, so let's just go ahead and Harsh Winds. Get that additional 12 puff caps into the deck. And then squeeze them cheeks, am I right? Clinch them tight, get the gluteal action happening. Let's see if we can't win a game here. 6 right off the top, GG. Did you all squeeze them? Was you squeezing them tight there? I certainly hope you were. I certainly hope you were. Woo. The gluteal workout courtesy of FTP Bust. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad to I'm glad to deliver on the cheek squeeze and high rolls right at the end of the game. Oh, what nonsense. Alright, into the next battle. Up against Deep. This is an interesting space against Deep in the sense that they have this angle to where, you know, you're planting puff caps through the deck. They're at a pretty even distribution, you know, normally. But with the opponent's deck cutting all of the puff caps out through tosses, you do run into some situations to where, you know, if you have the opportunity to, say, put 30 puff caps into the opposing deck, you'd rather put those 30 puff caps in when they have 15 cards in their deck instead of when they have, you know, 20, 25 cards in their deck. And so, you know, you do have some play in terms of kind of holding on to the puff caps until the mid game, but I don't want to get too crazy with it. If they start to drop Maokai combos on us, there's not really anything we can do in terms of a Maokai flip. So. He salvages. Let's get the intel down. These Omen Hawk units are gonna turn up somewhere, right? We got the double Omen Hawk activation in the deck. Somebody's got to turn up with some stats. No, Puffcat Peddler. As I say, this turn has a lot of opportunity for greatness. If he only has a small play and we get to Mystic Shot it and open with the Puffcat Peddler, that's a pretty big deal. Like, is he really just gonna block a Puffcat Peddler with Maokai here? That sounds awesome to me. Let's send it in. Can't let him play a unit and pick up the sapling, but oh man, the damage came through. That's nice. All right, well, let's see what else we can get going on. Got a big boy Omen Hawk. I think we might as well Insider Knowledge. Like, we don't have a ton of puff caps really rolling through at this point, but we don't have a lot of interactivity either. So it might deal a point of damage. It probably won't, but let's see what it puts forth. Get that Watery Grave out of the deck. That's what you want to see. So you don't just get instantly OTK'd by Maokai. Alright, dude hits deep. We're pretty safe in terms of all of his units, so I don't really care about that. It's this Maokai flip that we're actually worried about. There goes a second Watery Grave. Interesting to see. Wonder if he just passes here. There's no way he just passes with the units he has on board now. Let's see. Let's drop in a Sky Splitter. Protect our only unit that matters at the current moment. Prevent the damages here. I'm not really interested in blocking. Well, we probably should. I guess the answer is, like, if we draw Glacial Saurion, we would like it to be able to crash in for a couple of points of damage, but I mean, it's a 5/4. He's just gonna get blocked by a 5 health Sea Scarab. Let's just leave our guys at home. I typically recommend blocking here anyways, because you run into the spaces to where if your opponent has like weird tricks or something, say he had some kind of +1/+1 card, he could still attack through for damage, but I just don't think we ever die to actual physical combat damage here. Alright, so there's the Maokai flip. I'm not entirely certain how these games finish. I know I've played against an opponent in the Maokai versus Puffcaps match, and then had the game end due to a draw, right? It was like we couldn't draw because of our deck being emptied, and then the opponent died to Puffcaps, and it ended in a draw. It's actually interesting. I think it was in a best-of-3, and it counted as a win for both players. But not entirely certain how that works out. So what are these guys? He got 4 cards left and 3 puff caps. He's still got some tosses left in his system, but we did see him mill 2 watery graves, and so I'm curious if we just like can't pass again. If he's got the watery grave or something, we can try and pop off here, but I think we want to let him just empty out his deck. I guess the thing to worry about here, I'm not certain how this plays out, in the sense of if he doesn't have any cards in his deck, we can't put puff caps on him. But if he comes in and plays if he goes for the theme of just playing Maokai over and over and over again, I think that's probably what the opponent should have done here. I'm not certain, but we can block this and be okay. He just put a bunch of fresh units back in his deck. We've got 2 cards left. I'm trying to think if we want to play Advanced Intel just to cycle through an additional card here. I don't think we quite have that luxury. It's like we got to start playing something. Mystic Shot's fine. We can't just pass here anymore, right? But I think we can easily get a puff cap kill. Alright, as many spells as we can do. So where'd that get him? 15 puff caps and 8 cards? I don't know, man. It feels like we should have got a win in there somewhere, but let's see how it goes. We should have waited until after combat, right? It says he has 11 puff caps with 6 cards left. We had to play a couple of those spells, but I think we should have saved one for the very end. That's tough. 1 puff cap, 1 card left. We can add Sari on. It's not going to draw anything. Can't draw our last card. Can't play the Advanced Intel here. That's going to be a problem. Mega Tusk. Yeah, it's probably not going to do it. I don't know, like, that's tough. This is just such a weird matchup. But yeah, it feels to me like, I don't know, it's kind of tough with that strategy in the sense of just playing like the repeating Maokai. Like him getting Nautilus on board and all this other stuff just absolutely didn't matter. He was just going to win the game through decking anyways. But I'm curious if there wasn't a spot to where you just let the deck empty out so you can keep putting Maokais back in without the puff caps actually being there. Maybe Karina. Karina would only deal 4 damage. Okay. That's weird. I'm curious what people more experienced in the Teemo versus Deep matchup think. Like I don't know. It's tough the way that their deck can kind of manipulate out the puff caps. Again, I don't know. At the end of the day, it seems like it just shouldn't matter. It should matter in terms of density. So you, again, like if they have 10 cards in their deck or if they have 20 cards in their deck, you'd probably rather load up their deck when it just has 10 cards in it. But them cutting the cards out shouldn't matter. The big deal there, I guess, is Nautilus kind of coming back in and giving you, like, I think Nautilus put 8 cards in the deck. So like 8 fresh cards that don't have puff caps in it. But the deck churns through it so fast. I don't know. That's very strange to me. Nonetheless, on to the next one. Bilgewater Shurima with no champions. I'm not certain what we're about to get ourselves into here. But like I think I'm fine with one Teemo. Shouldn't be able to interact with it, right? It's like it's just so weird. Like maybe we have to hang on to him. Like with Teemo in the sense that like if he dies, you definitely want the second Teemo, but if he lives, you just have a dead card in your hand. And his flip ability is one of the actual worst in the game. So it's like, at least with Caitlyn, you know, if Caitlyn flips, you got the removal spell, but Teemo flipping, it's just so bad. But I have a hard time envisioning what this deck is. Like, my guess is that they're playing Reaver's Row, but I don't really know. Like, he does have a lot of one-drop cards rolling through now, which starts to make a little bit more sense in terms of Reaver's Row. But I guess you don't have to play Fizz. It's weird to see Reaver's Row without Aatrox in it, is the thing to me.
Hot on the trail.
I should stamp you out like
Right, it's 100% a one drops deck at this point, right? With domination coming in.
prepared for anything.
Teemo, that is not regulation equipment.
Swiftly.
Alright, so we'll let him gain the stats. That's fine. We have a reasonable amount of interactivity for these upcoming combats. Starting to get some flash bombs in here. If you want to squeeze your cheeks a little bit, maybe we'll get a good hit along the way. But not too worried about what's happening on board right now. I'd prefer to save these combat tricks kind of defensively. He's out of mana at this point, so we can drop the Peacemaker if we want. We'll still have the 5 mana next turn to Harsh Winds. And then ideally, Karina's gonna be pretty decent here, right? Did he really hit all the flash bombs? Like, oh, we got 6 in here. I was like, I was looking directly underneath the puff caps for the flash bomb indicator, and I was like, there's no way we're at this low. Like, these things haven't been popping. But it finally came through there in the end.
I did my best.
We're just stuck letting that happen. He's gonna hook. Caitlyn will play the Harsh Winds. As Teemo's not super important at this stage. I feel like if we just grind this a little bit harder. That he's not going to be able to overcome these Karinas and these flash bombs and stuff. I guess you do have to kind of watch yourself with the Zolanis. Like, Zolani is a very real finisher. I think these Karinas will be enough to clear out the board and help push through that kind of thing.
Karina, what brings you here?
Business and pleasure.
Business and pleasures. What we got? 2 puff caps, 5 flashbangs. Not bad.
Closing in on the mark. No backup needed.
It's a pretty healthy damage Caitlyn if he doesn't have a quicksand coming in for the 7 points of damage. That's very suspicious. Very, very suspicious with the equipment just coming in to give the Bakai the 4 health. But I mean, what's our hand do? Let's just play it safe. I don't know. I just have a tough time envisioning us losing this game if we get to continue on. And so, I mean, I know it's a really high-powered Caitlyn here with a ton of damage, but he's not doing anything out here. I feel like we should pretty safely be able to Karina again 2 turns from now, full clear the board, have a really hefty Caitlyn attack at that point, and then just kind of be off to the races. Did have to watch this health. It's like you can have Barrows come down at some point, but that's not till turn 9. We're okay in that sense. Oh, and he actually plays his Dark and Bloodletters. Doesn't go for the Zolani. Interesting. But I feel pretty good about this now. It's just down to the one card. If it's a quicksand, it's kind of okayer at this point since we can sky split the Caitlyn back up to one attack. So if he plays a -4 quicksand onto Caitlyn, she may not get the quick attack, but she should get the strike. Uh-oh. Here come the Reavers. Okay.
Watch your step.
I'm a peddler, not a meddler.
So we technically can survive this hit. I don't think I quite want to do that though. I just like falling to 1. I don't know if this deck plays shit like Parlay or Warning Shot, but I don't really want to risk it. So I'm gonna leave the unit over here with the Darken Harpoon on it active with the equipment, and then I'm just gonna come in and shoot down the Daring Poro. I think we're safe at 4. Falling to 1 just opens you up to die to random bullshit, and so we'll keep Karina at home. We'll keep the mana up for the Sky Splitter. Then we'll drop the Karina part 2 next turn. Then ideally that's enough to
Here's my calling card.
finish this game off. Eight puff caps, 7 flashbangs.
Karina, what brings you here?
Business and pleasure, Sheriff.
1 puff cap. We only hit for 3? That's a bummer. That is a bummer. We didn't even get the unit off the board.
Years in the making.
Wow. Well, I don't want to be just letting him draw cards at this point. That sounds like pure nonsense to me. So we'll try to save this insider knowledge for next turn. Wow. 10 flash bombs in there, just not hitting on anything. That might have been a lucky hit. He had an opportunity to get a little bit wider than us. He can still do it if he has like the predict card. I'm trying to think now if like we made a mistake in not playing the insider knowledge, but what may end up being our saving grace is the Shadow Apprentice with +2 attacks, only 3 damage. And if we can block the other stuff, then he shouldn't be able to get a kill.
Oh, if mushrooms could talk.
Alright, we'll keep risking it here. It's so weird seeing like the blood letters come down on.
Never die, because
He gets rid of his.
There they go.
I feel much safer at this point, at least.
Show me the file.
We can get +5 health out in front of a Zolani, then we just picked up 3 sisters. Like that's pretty juicy. Where's Caitlyn? Caitlyn's only at 4 damage on her strike. Okay.
May we bleed forever. Would a mushroom help?
All right, maybe this will get us there, right? I'd like to hold on to the 3 sisters here. It lets us potentially get an extra point of damage and a strike next turn. God, just ideally this shit would be done with, huh? This game is dragged on for an extra 10 turns. Of course, the puff caps are 1 short, but maybe Caitlyn's gonna be enough here. Whew. I don't know, man. My butt is tired after that.
I must say, a satisfactory outcome.
Alright, GG. Alright, on to the next one. So, man, out here at home, we've been making our way through the Mission Impossible series. I feel like I watched the Mission Impossible movies, maybe like the first one, I don't know, whenever it came out in like 2005 or so. But man, I didn't realize Tom Cruise. It's not Tom Cruise making a career. Tom Cruise made a fuckload of money well before the Mission Impossible series, but like he's most certainly made a literal fuckload of money off of that series, right? Regardless of what you think about the Mission Impossible series, Tom Cruise is out there just like bathing in millions of dollars, right? If he makes like $20 million a movie and he's made like 6 or 7 of them, I did the math and that's like a whole fuckload of dollars. And so, say what you want about those movies, but dude's made a ton. But the thing I've started to get hooked on, the thing that gets me kicking in terms of Tom Cruise these days is the mask, right? It's like everybody at every stage of the movie has a mask. You have to sit here and consider who's going to get their face ripped off in the middle of this scene for the plot twist to hit, and it happened again. And so I know we watched Mission Impossible 1. There was a mask scene. We watched Mission Impossible 2. There was a mask scene. We watched Mission Impossible 3. Not only do they have a mask making machine, but I think there were 2, maybe 3 mask reveals in the movie. Now we're in watching Ghost Protocol. Believe it or not, you don't have to, but I tell you it's true. There's already been at least 1 mask scene, and so the thing I start to wonder with this is, a lot of times people take themselves very seriously in terms of the work that they're producing and the things that they do. It feels like in my mind and my memory, Tom Cruise is like really into, I guess you could say, all the work that he does. And I feel like he would be upset if you like heard him making fun of the masks. Like, this sounds like something Vin Diesel would get mad about is all of these masks and you making fun of it. But it's certainly out there. It's certainly a thing. And so I'm just curious how he feels about it. I feel like it's just a meme at this point, right? Like it should just be taken with a bit of humor, in the sense that, everybody should be kind of on board at this point that the masks are just a meme and it's going to be happening. But I kind of feel like if you told Tom Cruise that, he'd get real mad. So I don't know. But back into the game here against Janna Seraphine. This should be one of the matchups to where we're feeling pretty decent about what's happening. We didn't have the quick and exact opportunity to get this Janna off of the board, but I feel pretty good about Mystic shotting her, and then we can still kind of combo off with the rest of our units with the Chump Wump coming down with massive stats, him being a Yordle, the veteran investigator being a Yordle if he survives, into our Sarion turn a little bit from now, and so I like how this stuff's looking. Kind of a wasted flashbang. I was just gonna Mystic shot Janna. We can't let her survive into the next turn, though. Like, this turn, him getting the discounts on his draws, fine. We can't let him get multiple turns of the discounts out of Janna. Maybe we can. I mean, if he's just not going to do anything at this point. Like, I've seen you play 0 reduced cards. He hasn't played any of the draws that he just did. I'm curious what that looks like in terms of his hand. With what he drew for the turn and not played. Well, yeah, he updrafted the 2. It's interesting. Alright, fine. So we hit her, but he got to draw the card, right? I think he only had 1 card draw, though. It's not as scary. Oh, not bad. Your flashbang did the work. Got rid of our 1 health unit. Now we could still get Teemo on the board, though. Very, very powerful round of attacks. I mean, these look like pretty decent Omen Hawks, right? Got the bonus on the Chump Lump, got the bonus on the Teemo. Oh, that's from the Sarion. Same deal, though.
Another day in the field.
I'll pick 'em, you plan 'em, kid.
Swiftly.
Like, we're just getting legitimately strong combats out of this. Wow. Nice, nice hit on that elusive to get in front of Teemo. Not bad, not bad. I'm gonna go ahead and Mystic Shot the Guardian. It protects our Sarion, so it doesn't die, and then it basically does 2 damage to the unit and 2 damage to face, since that Overwhelm's gonna hit through for extra points now. I think that's good. I don't think we need to get too clever in terms of what's happening, and like opponents in that kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't mode, to where he not only has to deal with all this shit that we have on board, like once that wave of stuff's dealt with, he's gonna have to deal with us just putting a ton of puff caps into his deck. And so I feel pretty decent in this space. Although all of our traps have been removed from the deck at this point. Alright, Song Spinner comes in. I'd like to Mystic Shot this Janna. I don't really want to see her flip. So let's see if he's got stuck with like a slow spell in hand or something he can't just immediately drop down. With the Song Spinner, you know, it's pretty realistic to have 2 cards hit. There we go. But it can be kind of tough after that.
Securing the perimeter.
The scene tells me all I need.
Alright, pretty healthy collection of dudes. Poro stories, getting those extra blockers on board. Alright, dude, fine. I think we're still looking pretty good. Holy shit! He's got the fucking quick attack challenger nimble Poro? Oh no. We should not have played that puff cap. We should have kept our brittle steel active. I completely spaced out. I just thought this game was all completely done. Oh man, I did not see any of that nonsense. Okay. Okay. Dims to breaks, I guess. Should still be in okay shape, though, I think. Even if you have, say, like a concussive palm for the Sarion, the 4 damage from the Investigator is good. We can look to bonus stat with the 3 sisters here, play a Mushroom Cloud, then Karina next turn or something. Like, we have a lot of fantastic options in this space. It's like a lethal so far. Even with our whoopsies, looking kind of okay. Getting all Ghost Protocol out here. GG. All right, we're getting close to the end. Let's get ourselves one more game in. We'll call it a day. So, man, I also remembered, I meant to talk more about David Beckham. I was talking about David Beckham in the previous video. I watched the David Beckham documentary on Netflix. It was quite good as well. But I remember thinking, like, all through, like, college, I had not, like, long hair, but it was kind of like the thing during COVID to where you couldn't get a haircut, so your hair just got kind of long. And my hair just got kind of long because I was, like, I wasn't poor. Like, I don't want to make it sound like I was poor when we weren't, but like poor in the sense that if you have $100 to spend, I would probably spend like $20 on food and $80 on beer, as opposed to spending $20 on food, $60 on beer, and $20 on a haircut, right? You could always push the haircut down the road so that you could come out and purchase more beer. And so that's what I mean. And so it's kind of like in COVID, right? When nobody could go out and get a haircut, and so you just kind of found yourself letting the hair grow a little bit longer. That's the way it was for me. And so once I got into my mid-20s, I'd graduated college and had a professional job. I was tired of looking like Jim Halpert at work all the time. And so I had to like look for some inspiration on how to not look like an idiot. And it was always David Beckham. Like any time, like it's like, okay, that's how we got this haircut right. David Beckham shaves his head. He looks good. Let's just do the same. And so we did that. Anytime you'd have to go to like a wedding or go to the funeral, sure. You know, you need you need funeral fashion advice. You definitely look towards David Beckham. But whenever I needed it, you know, whenever I had to get a little bit of fashion-based guidance, Bex was always there to give me the support I needed. And so that was just another thing I got reminded of the special place that the Bex has in my heart, being that he can he can give me that fashion-based guidance that us nerds just desperately needed. You can also say with him, you know, the neck tattoo. That's a very that's a very risky get, right? It's a very fine line between this neck tattoo looking like I'm never going to get a job, or you know, looking classy and nice. And he's definitely got classy and nice locked down. This is what you all came here for, right? Fashion advice, artistry, ways to make yourself look better. How it all ties into David Beckham. You know, you're welcome. Glad I'm glad to bring the assist. But this is looking in this game pretty strong, right? I feel like these are very David Beckham worthy games of sitting around just bullshitting, since it feels like this one should be pretty easy, right? We're going to try and crash in for damage on board here. We can add in the Chump Wump now. We can add in the Omen Hawk. Try and get these combats in. And then did we overdraw that? Maybe we should have paid a little bit more attention. Just a little bit more, you know. But we can get these combats in. Ideally, we'll crash through some damage here, and then after that, it's just going to be Puff Cap Peddler churning off a ton of Puff Caps and hopefully draining through these last points of damage that we need.
Another day in the field.
I'll pick 'em, you plan 'em, kid.
A little bit sloppy, though. I'll be the first to admit. Maybe Rito ruined my life is out there soaking up this David Beckham knowledge. He says, God, I just wish I looked a little bit better. I need some inspiration and guidance. It's the Bex.
Purge the impurities.
You shall not assail them.
So let's see how this goes. Last time he did this, like, it makes sense to just let the Saurion through. You can't put like Mariam in front of the Saurion and take a little bit less damage. But the last time he did this, he didn't try to. I was gonna say tried to take down the Saurion. Now that he moved the Saurion down, like I thought this might be one of these spots to where he's gonna be like, okay, well I'm gonna try and burn down the Saurion and just take the Teemo hit. And that would kind of give us a spot to either A, play the Sky Splitter, or B, flip the Teemo. But flipping the Teemo feels like a little dangerous. It's a fairly heavy mana investment, to where in this spot now we can just say Mystic Shot Janna, and then next turn we can spew down a bunch of spells. Let's just go ahead and drop it. I know we have Sky Splitter that we can protect the Saurion with, but I think we're kind of beyond the combat damage actually mattering at this point.
Storm unrelenting.
Peddler number 2, and look at these massive stats for playing the Saurions and playing the Omen Hawks. That has like historically been the problem with trying to get work done out of these peddlers, is like you put the 3/3 peddler on the board and it just can't do anything in combat. But now that we're out here like this, look, LOL, it's a 5/5. Like this guy takes a shitload of work to actually deal with. That was it. That was enough for victory. GG. Well played. Pull this up, talk about it a little bit more. And so, we got to touch on some oddities of matchups there, right? We got to play Janna twice, which just felt like free wins. We got to play against some of the off-meta numbers throughout the course of the games. They went, kind of fine. They didn't feel spectacular, but they didn't feel great. And had we got to play, like, this could have very easily been a different video to where we had to play around against, like, Ashe LeBlanc, and then we had to play around against Jax Ornn, which is kind of coin flippy, but not the worst matchup. But then you get to play a match against, say, whatever Gnar deck people are playing these days. And those, like, Freylord big meaty unit kind of numbers are much worse than just playing against Jannas. And so, just if we rolled the dice a little bit differently, the matchup table would have looked a little bit differently today. But we played against Janna twice, and that certainly helped with what we're trying to do. But outside of that, outside of the kind of standard matchup-y stuff that hasn't changed too long over the course of the previous few seasons, I think the thing to really touch on here is just the Omen Hawk and Glacial Saurion. They fit in so many decks to where it doesn't really feel like they belong. And I feel like just even giving a Caitlyn up to a 4/4 or the Chump Wumps becoming 5/5s are just such massive bonuses for such little investment in the Omen Hawk that it's just wild to me how strong these cards have been allowed to get. And so, I don't think this party is going to last too much longer to where Omen Hawk and Saurion can just freely go into every deck. I really hope that Riot maybe takes my idea of the menagerie and says Glacial Saurion must behold a Nico unit to get the bonus off of this, but he's still a card that should probably just be like a 4/4 or something at this point. He is exceptionally strong. But nonetheless, I feel like it's an interesting take on the deck. Again, I didn't initially come up with this. Some other brilliant mind did. But I think there's a lot of stuff in here that you aren't seeing across all of the Teemo Caitlyn lists between playing the Hawks, the Saurions, and the Karinas. And I feel like we have a different mix of spells that you don't always see. I've been a little bit happier with this than some of the practice games I played. So nonetheless, good set of games. I had fun with that. I hope you did too, because that is going to do it for us today. So I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way, and you had a good time watching. This is Bustin. We thank you for being here.